Schwab Advisor Services is a proud supporter of the RIA Edge Podcast and independent financial advisors like you. When it comes to your independence, Schwab Advisor Services is all in. They provide industry-leading custody services with no AUM minimums, no custody fees, and digital onboarding for starters. With Schwab, you'll be backed by some of the most passionate folks in the industry with over 35 years of experience helping firms of all sizes. To learn more about everything Schwab can do for you, visit advisorservices.schwab.com.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the RIA Edge Podcast. This podcast, as you know, is my chance to talk with the executives that are building and managing RIA firms that are growing quickly, but in our estimation are doing so in a sustainable way, not just simply wafting upwards on market appreciation, but rather designing professionally managed investment advisory businesses designed for what we think is sustainable growth, or rather, as we say, growth by design and not by default. We were recently at the Schwab Impact Conference in San Francisco and got a chance to speak with Jennifer Groseilliers, who is the brand new CEO of the Mather Group, $14 billion AUM RIA based in Chicago. Jennifer's brand new to the position, as you'll hear, but she's not brand new to financial services, having spent a great deal of her professional life in the broker-dealer world. So it's no secret that the Mather Group has had some leadership issues in recent years. Chris Behrens, who led TMG through its acquisition by Vistria Group in 2022, was replaced by Chief Executive Jeff Pierce in June of 2023. Pierce himself left TMG earlier this year after just 9 months in the role. He's now locked in litigation with the Mather Group over allegations of non-compete and non-disparagement agreements. So there's some tough history here with the firm. And I'll tell you right now that we did not get into any of that with Jennifer. Rather, Groseilliers promises a new chapter in the Mather Group's evolution, and we got into some of her vision for the firm here. As I said, this was recorded at Schwab's Impact Conference, so forgive any ambient noise in the background. But with that, let's move on to the conversation with Jennifer Groseilliers. Let's just start for the folks who don't know the Mather Group as well.
Sure, great. So just to give you a little bit of lay of the land around the Mather Group, we have about 14 offices throughout the United States, 175 employees, and we're currently at $14 billion in assets under management. We primarily work with individuals and even more specifically executives at big companies who are typically within 1 to 3 years of retirement or retired. We also have a family office component of our firm that works with folks that are 25 million and above. And our minimum for our core clients is $1 million and above in investable assets.
Okay. And about how many clients you roughly?
We have about 4,000 clients, and our model is relatively simple. We lead with financial planning. We offer investment advice, and we also have an in-house tax team that not only prepares tax returns, but also gives tax advice and tax strategy. And we also help facilitate estate planning. We have partnerships with various attorneys around the country.
The Mather Group, you say you lead with financial planning. The value prop that you bring to clients, tell me a little bit about that. I guess this kind of rolls into your marketing efforts. How do you make prospects aware of you?
Yes. So really our stated value prop is at the Mather Group, you don't just get one advisor, you get the Mather Group. And the idea is as a client's fiduciary, we're able to simplify complex financial planning with an all-inclusive approach to, like I said, investment, tax, and estate planning, and really all for one transparent fee. So we can focus on what really matters to the client.
And how did you get to the Mather Group? You're a relatively new CEO there. How did that happen?
That's a great question. So I joined the Mather Group in February of this year, and I came on board as the Chief Revenue Officer in February. And about 5 weeks later, the then CEO decided to resign. And so I stepped in as interim for a few months and then was appointed as full-time CEO.
And who did that appointing? Was it the board? I know that there are some private equity backers.
That's correct. We do have a private equity backer, the Vistria Group, which is primarily based in Chicago and in New York City. And that's correct. I was appointed by the board at Vistria.
Are they a majority owner? Or
they are a majority owner.
Okay. And when did that? Do you know when that happened? When the investment from the Vistria Group?
Vistria came in 2022.
Okay. So one of the things that we talk about on this podcast a lot is how executives at RIAs are building the firms for, obviously the client experience is important, but you want to, build a firm that's sustainably growing, not just simply wafting up on rising equity markets and AUM. So tell me a little bit about how you're approaching growth.
It's a great question. Yeah, so there's really three components when we think about growth. The first is organic growth. We have multiple channels that support that, including we have a lead generation program, an inside sales and business development team. We have a very robust summer internship program. We also have a custodial referral program, client referrals, and of course, we nurture our relationships with our centers of influence. So that's the organic piece. And then the second piece for growth is our inorganic growth strategy. We do have a heavy focus on M&A partnerships, really with the goal to acquire top talent from partner firms, expand our geographic footprint, and look for expanding our product and service offerings to enhance the client experience. And I should also mention we've made some significant investments into the business that have helped us become more efficient and help us grow as well. So things like launching a human resource information system. We've hired a new chief talent officer. We do leverage data science in relation to many of our tech-related and data initiatives. We've made significant investments into Salesforce. We also have made significant investments into our advisor training and our skill development.
Tell me a little bit more about the acquisition strategy. If you're going out and buying RIAs, what do you look for? Is there? And obviously, you're new there, so maybe this is like a more aspirational than it is, But tell me what you look for in an RIA if you're going to go out into the market. Yes. Is it just a voracious appetite for RIAs, or are you selective? How do you approach?
We're very targeted when we look for acquisitions because we see ourselves as an integrator when we bring in a firm versus being an aggregator. So we're really looking for a good cultural fit. We're looking for a firm that leads with financial planning like we do. And we're also looking for firms that have top talent and maybe other services and strategies that we could also deploy. So, for example, we did an acquisition in the Bay Area a few years ago, and one of the pieces of talent in that team was now specialized in alternative investments for us, an investment specialist. So that's a good example of where we were able to leverage talents in one of our acquisitions.
Is that the sort of thing, and we'll get to the talent question in a bit, because I know you guys have some interesting programs going on inside the firm for talent retention. But in terms of acquiring talent, by going out to the M&A markets and finding services that maybe you don't have in-house, alternatives, was the goal with that San Francisco acquisition? What was that firm?
So that was a firm in the Bay Area in Lafayette, was called Clear Perspectives. It's obviously part of the Mather Group now. I guess that was one of our intents when we acquired Clear Perspectives, to integrate their alternative specialist, Steve Biggs, who's wonderful, into our culture.
And why was that important? Why bring alternatives into the mix? Why look for an alternatives expert?
So we're always looking to enhance the client experience and make sure that we're meeting market demands. And for many clients, that's something that they're interested in exploring. So we wanted to make sure that we have that offering.
Do you see more client demand for alternatives? Because we hear about this all the time, right? That as equity markets are getting smaller and value creation is happening outside the public markets more and more, that advisors are, I guess, being prompted to offer clients more alternative investments, private equity or whatever it might be.
Yeah, so correct. It does come up frequently, and I think is an important thing to be competitive that we have available.
So tell me then a little bit about, once these firms come into the fold at the Mather Group, are they rebranded as Mather Group firms? Is that important to you to have everyone under the same kind of branding and the same? How does that integration work? You say you're an integrator, not an aggregator.
Yes.
So everyone comes onto the same tech platform? Everyone comes onto the same investment platform? How does that work?
That's correct. So over a period of time through the integration, that's exactly what you said. Take on the Mather name. They also adopt our tech stack. And then we also look at helping firms consolidate their back office into our back office to help with their efficiencies.
So they all come onto your Form ADV, and
Yeah.
so we take on the compliance and all as a...
We take on compliance, we take on marketing, we take on client service, we take on the investment, research and execution, as well as the tax piece.
So one of the things that people, RIAs, talk about a lot is this war for talent. Apparently there's just not enough talent to go around. And I know that you guys have some interesting things going on inside the firm in terms of incentive plans for keeping your advisors around, and probably more than just the advisors, right? I mean, I imagine this extends to all employees, but tell me a little bit about how you're working on talent retention.
Mm-hmm. Well, one important thing to mention is we do have an incentive program, and our program allows our employees to share in the company's growth and success. Incentives are only paid out during a liquidity event, and an overall incentive pool has been determined by us, will be determined by us at the time of valuation. And I think this is important because it aligns with our growth targets, and it really provides people a financial reward based on the increase of the firm's value over time. And currently, we have about 85% of our employees that participate in our incentive program.
And can you tell me how the incentive program is structured? Do they have to buy into it, or is it, I guess, equity options, I guess, for lack of a better word, given to them as part of their compensation package? Or if you say 85% are participating, they have to make some kind of... Can you explain to me a little bit how it works? I mean, do they buy into it? Do they have to say...
They do not have to buy into it. So they are awarded based on positions and based on performance as well.
And when you say rewarded based on performance, tell me how you define winning, right? What does that look like? What is a good performance? Is it just simply AUM goes up, or is it revenue, or are there other metrics that you look at?
It's a combination of both, and we're obviously tracking on the revenue side, but we're also tracking to make sure that we do our growth in a high caliber way, and rewarding people that participate in that.
How do you I define high caliber growth? I imagine it's not just velocity.
Just to give you an idea of the type of growth that we've experienced over the last couple of years. So since partnering with the Vistria Group, this has paved the way for new initiatives to help us begin to continue to develop our business model. And over the last 24 months, our AUM has grown by in excess of 41% as of July 2024, as well as a 12% rise in year-over-year AUM, also from July 2024. So our incentive awards are aligned with this growth.
Okay.
We are very committed to cultivating both emotionally and morally intelligent teams across our organization. So what we know is from research and employee studies and feedback from my standing career in finance, also my experience as a college athlete, we realize the need for both emotionally and intelligent leaders in our business. And exemplifying emotional intelligence as a leader involves creating a workplace where we have empathy, self-awareness, and open communication. And it means finding ways for our teams to not just to feel ownership in what they're doing, but ultimately, like we talked about through the incentive program, sharing in success of our organization.
You were a college athlete. What did you play?
I played Division I basketball at University of Buffalo.
Oh, fantastic. That's great. Did you get a scholarship there?
I did. I was a full 4-year scholarship athlete.
Great. And it didn't, obviously, I guess there was a WNBA back in those days. I don't know. Was there?
Well, not that old. So yes, there was a WNBA. And actually the WNBA was a couple years in existence when I graduated from college. So I've had the distinct pleasure of watching women's basketball really take off over the last 20 years, which has been a lot.
Yeah, it's really become like it's it's really coming to its own. It's great to see.
It really is. And, people often say, oh, women's basketball has gotten so much better. It really hasn't gotten that much better. People are just paying attention, which is nice.
Yeah. And good to have like a couple stars that really everyone kind of focuses on, I guess. Although maybe unfair to other players, but nonetheless, that notion of star players probably works in advisory firms too, right? I'm sure you have some, advisors out there that are in your group that are the star advisors. How do you think about talent in that way? Obviously the managed incentive plan, yes, but other ways that I think firms bring in advisors, for instance, your San Francisco alternatives expert, and try to feed the rest of the advisors with that knowledge or that skill set. Explain to me how that works where you are, and it can't be that easy, right? I mean, if you have a bunch of advisors who aren't used to offering their clients alternatives, and then suddenly, hey, we have this firm that does alternatives, that's all they do, they would love to talk to your clients about XYZ. How do you get those advisors who are maybe been there a while, stuck on it, to figure out, oh yes, this is something that I can take advantage of?
Yeah, so I think it all comes down to effective leadership within the organization. So one of the things that I did very shortly after becoming the CEO is I created a leadership advisory council that we lead initiatives and implementation through. Because what I know to be true is that investing in our people goes beyond creating an attractive reward and a recognition system. We need to invest in skills, decision-making development of every employee, starting with myself. So to harness this potential, I created the Leadership Advisory Council, which brings together leaders from all corners of our firm, including, like you just mentioned, folks that have joined from acquisitions. And what it allows us to do is address critical strategic challenges and ensure every perspective is valued. And so therefore, as with thought leaders from various backgrounds, this council has become a powerful forum for reflecting on our progress and also shaping our future and helping people engage with our various initiatives.
How many advisors are on this advisory leadership council?
So we have about 25 people on the advisory council. We meet once a quarter. We spend half of our time on leadership development skills, enhancing our skills, and we spend the second half of the time talking about progress in the business. And I really use it as a forum so everybody has a voice. They have influence over where we're going, and people can really feel part of our growth and our success.
How do you structure these? Are these like offsites on multiple days, or a single day, half day?
So I've found that shorter, more intense periods are more beneficial. So we meet once a quarter, and we meet for a full day. And like I said, we divide the day into the two components.
Okay. Always in Chicago? Do you meet in Chicago, or?
To date, we've just met in Chicago. It seems to be a popular location for everybody.
Okay. Folks don't have to travel that far, I guess, too.
Exactly. And I want to be respectful of people's day-to-day commitments, and that's why we typically fly in, we have dinner together, we work the whole day, and then people can get on one of the last flights back.
Okay. Do folks volunteer for this leadership committee, or do you choose them?
Yes, I have chosen the folks. So we have a nice cross-representation of people that have been with the Mather Group for a long time. We have people from various acquisitions. We also have various leaders that lead different departments on the advisory council as well.
So in this advisory council, the last time you all got together, give me some of the top things that your advisors were talking about, like we need to do something differently, or we need this, we need that. What are some of the feedback that you're getting from the advisors?
Absolutely. So we spent a lot of time on a couple of different things. We spent a lot of time talking about our client service model and really brainstorming different ways that we could enhance the model to make sure that we're providing exemplary service for our clients. We also spent time thinking about where's the business heading and what other services or offerings do we need to be competitive in the future, whether that's providing fraud protection, whether that's providing other ancillary services, and really having a very open and transparent conversation about that, to think about what we're going to do as the Mather Group to stay competitive in the ever-changing RIA space.
For sure. And you already mentioned that you have the family office model with some network of estate attorneys that you work with. How do you think about these ancillary services? And if your advisor is saying we need to do more of X, or my clients are asking for us to do this, we don't do it currently. What are some of those areas?
Yeah, so some of the things that we're looking at right now are, for example, property and casualty. Like I said, insurance, identity theft protection. That's interesting. And what we will do as we explore these things is interview various companies. We also make most of our final decisions through committee work that represents, different areas of the organization. So we have a diverse group of perspectives at the table when we choose to move forward with final feedback provided from the advisory council before we move forward. And so those are things that we're actually starting to work on right now through the end of the year, and we'll be looking at very carefully at the beginning of 2025.
I imagine like fraud protection, clearly that's important to everyone. I guess most people don't necessarily go to their advisor for that, but maybe they should. I don't know. But how would you implement something like that? I mean, would you go out and find a vendor, maybe here at the Schwab conference, maybe there's someone, or, does it feed into your acquisition strategy? You're looking for a firm that maybe has good chops in that area?
Yes, I think it could be a combination of both. And that's exactly what we're exploring right now. There's some very good companies out there that do this already. There's several RIAs that have already incorporated this into their offering. So it's really doing our research, seeing what's worked well, and then seeing what will work well for us in our model.
Mm-hmm. Any other services? You'd say you have a network of estate attorneys. We've noticed that I think a lot of RIAs, probably about the size of the Mather Group, certainly north of $10 billion, starting to bring in trust companies or hiring estate attorneys, or, bringing that in-house. Would you consider acquiring a trust company or building one inside as opposed to going outside? I imagine probably the trusts are held outside right now. Would you consider bringing that in-house?
We would consider that, yes. And that's also something that's the beauty of the advisory council, is we've got people that have seen these things done in a variety of ways. And so really vetting this out and seeing which one works within our model.
How would you make that determination about which one works for the model? What kind of metrics would you look at to determine this is better in-house versus referring outside?
There's going to be a variety of metrics. To be totally frank, it's a little premature in our process right now. So we just haven't gone that deep on that particular piece.
And what about there's the trust and estate side, the tax planning. How do you approach that with your clients? I imagine you do the tax planning, but probably not the tax preparation. Is there any thought about bringing tax preparation into it?
Yeah, we actually do tax preparation.
You do? Okay.
So we have an in-house team that does tax preparation and tax strategy. So we already have that in-house. And I think, as most people know, the tax landscape is incredibly more competitive, from finding good talent to retaining good talent. And so that's something that, in order to stay ahead of the curve and be able to continue to provide this to our client, we've spent a lot of time and energy making sure that we're staying up to date and being able to provide this service.
I think there are some RIAs that would say we don't want anything to do with tax preparation because it's so low margin. We don't really get paid appropriately for it. Better to let someone else do it, and we'll just do the planning part.
Right.
But you have not found that.
We have not. We've found that it's definitely a differentiator in the marketplace, and for our clients, something that they do really appreciate from a convenience and just from a quality of advice standpoint.
Let's jump back to the talents question again, because I think it's something that a lot of advisors really do grapple with. You have a private equity backer, which is a majority owner of the firm. You're giving equity to employees. You say that equity is realized at a liquidation event or some sort of liquidity event. When do these liquidity events happen? It's is there obviously who knows what's in the mind of the private equity investors, who knows? But is there a roadmap for those liquidity events? I mean, can the employees expect at some point, plan for those options to be converted into actual money?
Yes, yes. So we certainly have a value creation plan that we share internally. It's not something we share outside of the firm, but our employees are aware of the valuation plan and the targets that we're looking for in terms of growth over the upcoming years.
And you don't share it outside of the firm, but I imagine a liquidity event from a PE-backed RIA would be some kind of either selling to another PE firm or another investor, another outside investor. Is that anything that's on the roadmap for you? Have you, in other words, in your short time there in the CEO chair, has your phone been ringing with other investors, private equity investors, or other firms saying, we would like to get in on this?
I've had a lot of fun getting to know people in the RIA space, firms that are our size, firms that are bigger, firms that are smaller. Right now, I'm really focused on building my network within the RIA space, but most importantly, focused on growth right now and really building a very, very strong firm.
Well, let's talk a little bit, because you spent a long time in Ameriprise. You come from the broker-dealer world. Coming into the RIA space, anything that surprised you about the RIA space, or did you know it pretty well before you got here, or is there anything here that surprised you? Or
It's a great question. So I would say the best way to describe it is 85% feels very, very similar to me. And then there's the other part of the business that I continue to learn. And I think probably what's the most interesting and maybe even surprising to me is just the exceptional work that folks do within the RIA space and the commitment to the fiduciary and the suitability standards towards the clients. And specifically at the Mather Group, every one of our advisors has either their CFP, their MBA, or their JD. We also have a group of advisors with no disclosures. And so we really take our commitment to doing what's in the client's best interest very seriously and at the front and center of every decision that we make. And I think that's what makes the RIA space really special in terms of leading with always leading with the client's best interest. But I think when you're in an environment where you're not offering ancillary services, and you're just committed to the financial planning and the investments, I do think there's a different lens that you put on when you work with a client.
And that lens is, how would you describe how that lens?
You're just very focused on those two things and the financial planning, and you're not distracted by other products or other offerings. And I think that makes for a very high level of suitability.
Speaking of offerings, then explain to me how your investment platform works. Is it who do you use? Is it kind of open architecture, or do you have some vendors or asset managers that you prefer?
So we work with Fidelity and with Schwab on both platforms, and we have in-house investment specialists on the equity side, fixed income, as well as alternatives like I discussed. And then we also have our team of traders that execute on our portfolios, and we use a passive indexed fund approach.
And the allocation models are created in-house, or you models from?
That's correct. We create everything in-house in a very low-cost approach.
Okay. That's fantastic. What about technology? The tech stack that you use. I know all of the firms that you acquire kind of come onto it. I imagine your advisory council probably has some things to say about the tech that they use, or the failures of the technology they use. Where are you at in terms of your technology integration?
So we have 3 areas specifically around our tech forward approach where we've made investments that help grow the business. The first is, and I think I mentioned this earlier, our investment in data science and AI. We've also invested in our workflows and our processes to streamline our operations and improve our client experience. And then we are constantly looking at our tech roadmap for review and assessments related to not only tech, but also the cyber-related initiatives, which is also obviously a huge focus for everybody in this environment that we're in, and making sure that we're focused on the right things to drive client value for not only our clients, but our employees, with that heavy emphasis on the security.
This theme of cybersecurity keeps coming up with the Mather Group. And I'm just wondering, where does that come from? Because it's not something that I hear a lot of other RIAs talking about. And again, maybe they should be, I don't know. But where does that come from in your firm? Is this something that the advisors brought to you and said, hey, we really need to double down on the cybersecurity issue because my clients are worried? Where does it?
I would say that it's prevalent everywhere. It's prevalent for our clients. It's prevalent for us as a firm. I know I have a hard time not seeing some type of cyber issue, even when I open personal email or I look at text messages that I'm getting. So I think it's front and center and needs to be front and center to protect ourselves and our clients.
And I guess what would that look like from an advisor perspective to the client? Would it be just assurances that their information is protected?
We do a lot of training with our advisors in terms of how to identify phishing, how to identify maybe a request from a client that might actually not be from the client. I think bad actors have gotten very sophisticated in how they approach us and how they approach clients. So the education piece is really significant, as well as making sure from a tech perspective, our computers, our phones are very well protected with the most state-of-the-art technology.
Okay. If you were to say one thing that you found at the Mather Group that you want to change, what would it be?
That's a great question. You talked about this a little bit earlier, that there's really not an abundance of talent out there in the financial services space. And so I think we have a huge opportunity through the advisory council and through some of the other leadership development programs that we're putting in place to really develop the next generation of leaders and put those resources into people's leadership development skills.
And how do you approach that? If we're talking about bringing in new talents or younger talent, next gen talent, is that just where do you find them? Where do you go? Do you go to the universities, the CFP programs? I don't know. How do you?
So one thing that we have at the Mather Group that's really special is we have a fantastic summer internship program. And in fact, at the end of the internship in the summer, we award the top intern a $25,000 scholarship.
$25,000?
Yes, to use the following year towards their college. And so our interns...
That's not insignificant.
No, it's a fantastic piece. All of our interns are going into their senior year. And then we have the ability to hire from the internship into our entry-level inside sales program. And these folks really then go on to get their CFP, get their Series 65, and have an opportunity to pick their career path. Financial planners, wealth advisors, some of them might even choose to go on into investment specialists, traders, operations, HR, marketing.
And these career pathways are available inside the Mather.
They are. So we really like to think of ourselves as growing our talent from the inside sales group. And clearly there's times where we go outside to hire talent. But the vast majority of our wealth advisors at the Mather Group actually came up through our inside sales program.
Really? Is that true? That's interesting. How big is this intern cohort?
So this summer we had about 15 inside sales interns in the office. And over the winter, because some schools work on different quarters or semesters, we're actually doing some small internship programs over the winter that will then feed into our financial planning program.
Okay. Where do you find the interns? So that is one of the things that a lot of RIAs say is that, folks don't even know, like college kids, right?
Yeah.
Don't know. They go to the business schools and it's the wealth management is not necessarily something that the business schools are that keen to talk about. How do these interns find you?
It's a great question. So one of the investments we've made over the last couple of years is to bring on a chief talent officer and also an in-house recruiter. And so we are very targeted in working with schools. We have relationships at those schools, and we do all of our own recruiting to bring in the talent. And because we do the internship in Chicago, we tend to look at the Big Ten schools in and around the Chicago, where the kids
Midwest.
tend to be from the Chicagoland area. So we do have a couple of outliers, but that gives us a pretty broad scope of schools that we can look at.
And do you track how many or the percentage of the intern cohort then go on to join the Mather Group? You say many of the wealth managers that you have inside the office are from this. Do you track the percentage that?
We do, and it really depends on the year in terms of how many we bring on the following year. That depends on how many people in that entry-level inside sales program get promoted up, because that will free up spots. We also have instances where people go through our internship program, maybe go get another job somewhere, and then we stay in touch with them. So a year or two later, we have an opening, and then they come in with a couple of years of experience. So it really depends on the year in terms of what type of capacity we have to hire.
What is the demographic profile then of your advisors? One of the things that we all know is that, these are older white men.
Yeah.
Is that changing at all at the Mather Group, or how do you?
We do a really nice job at the Mather Group in terms of our mix of men and women, because of people coming up through the inside sales, we tend to have a younger demographic, which is nice. And I would say the area of opportunity for us, just like everywhere else in financial services, is to continue to diversify from a people of color perspective. And that's something that we are focused on. In fact, as we're looking at recruiting for our internship class for 2025 summer, we're looking at some additional schools in addition to the ones we've gone to before. I think it all starts with that internship program, and if we can have good diversity there, that will cascade throughout the firm.
So maybe a lot of the historically black universities, going to some of those, and some of them are very good CFA programs.
That's exactly what we're exploring right now, is just being a little bit more creative and broad in where we're recruiting from.
That's fantastic. Well, this has been great. I know you're brand new on the job, so I'm sorry if I don't want to put you on the spot at all, but it's a great introduction to you and the Mather Group, so I appreciate you being with us.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Schwab Advisor Services is a proud supporter of the RIA Edge Podcast and independent financial advisors like you. When it comes to your independence, Schwab Advisor Services is all in. They provide industry-leading custody services with no AUM minimums, no custody fees, and digital onboarding for starters. With Schwab, you'll be backed by some of the most passionate folks in the industry with over 35 years of experience helping firms of all sizes. To learn more about everything Schwab can do for you, visit advisorservices.schwab.com.